This has been a very interesting journey, learning about myself, learning about how I communicate, what makes me communicate the way I do, and how I can improve on my communications. And we had several books that we had used, which we will be looking at the end of the class. I would like to now show you what my overarching goal is in life in terms of communication. My overarching goal is to grow in self-awareness during interpersonal communications, whether with families, with friends, with my work associates, and more importantly, especially during difficult conversations, which I've found that I need to really improve in. I believe that in taking the lesson that I've learned in this class, I set myself up to become a very effective listener and talker, and consequently improve the quality of my conversations and relationships. As Susan Scott mentioned from the excerpt of her book, Fierce Conversation, as we studied in the Bridges Not Walls textbook, she mentioned that the conversation is the relationship. That really hit me hard. That really hit me in terms of every single conversations we have each and every single day has the potential to make us present in those relationships. And this is what I take on onto this class. Next slide. So a larger conversation to me means acknowledging and listening to my interpersonal conversations and how those factors of my values, cultures, beliefs, and experiences influence my information system, my information processing. I want to become more of a mindful listener, which means just using my whole being, my hearing, my eyes, and everything to listen and be more attentive in conversations. Next, I would like to develop my collaborative skills, especially being a human service professional, which includes being able to adapt, have empathy, social skills, deal with anxieties within and outside of me, as well as being more assertive. And one of the things that, as a Christian, that I would love to put in that instructs me so much in regards to my communication is James chapter 1 verse 19, which talks about everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I would like to use this as my mantra. Next slide, please. Now, my background in the conversation, I was raised in a communal culture. I'm Nigerian by birth. And we have a communal culture which more emphasizes more of the community than the individual. And this, of course, influences the way I relate with my adults, with my peers, and with people younger than I am. The roles in my home were pretty much formal, however, were flexible. My father was in the military, so he was not really, he was in and out, which, of course, we all have to serve them. But my parents, my mom was more in charge of things. Secondly, respect is a very big deal. Authority is regarding high esteem, and therefore I learned to be obedient pretty fast. Secondly, and also conflicts were handled not really as much as one would expect as a family or called into. Many times they were being avoided. In terms of being talked to, I was used to raise voices, in other words, shouting in the house. And I got used to that. Secondly, parents listened to me distractedly, interrupting me, interrogating, frowning, and while listening. This affected the way I communicated. So that's my background, my socialization process. Next slide. We're speaking about behavioral blend right now. There are 4 major behavioral temperaments that describe our human behaviors. We have the D behavioral type, which is actively demanding, decisive, and task-oriented. We have the I personality type, which is outgoing, inspiring, influential, and very people-oriented. The next slide was the S personality type, which is passive, people-oriented. And then we finally have the C type, which is passive and task-oriented. In this case, my behavioral blend, according to the Uniquely You profile, is the SI specialist, which is defined as highly influential, people-oriented, outgoing, inspirational, and submissive. Next slide. Influences of my behavioral blend and background. As you can see, I have notated that in the positives and the negatives. Some of the positives and the negatives are inspirational. I tend to be inspirational, as we noted, empathetic, which comes in very handy with learning to be a good listener, obedient, conflict negotiator, and optimistic most times. The negatives, as I see here, is non-assertive, easily distracted by people, so there's this distraction within me and outside of me because I want to please people. Emotional, which can tend to make me defensive. Conflict avoidance, lack of motivation, and I have the okay, I'm not okay, you're okay attitude. Next slide. Potential barriers to my interpersonal text. I had mentioned some of them before and I have listed them here. The barriers to my listening can be biased listening, whereby I can tune out when people are speaking. I go on mental tangents. You have defensive listening, being laden by your emotions, therefore ready to talk. We also have red flag, hot button subjects. Why didn't you? You should have. I've come to learn that those are hot button topics that sort of tune me out and I go into a flag rectangle. Then I have my style of listening is more of an interrupter and self-conscious listening styles, where it's more consumed with my thoughts and how I am being perceived rather than what acknowledging the talker. Fidgeting, hand movement, body movement, and insufficient eye contact, which is a socialization thing. My eye contact is not sufficient enough, then can cause people problems. So here are the solutions that I have listed. Some of them being listening non-judgmentally and critically, acknowledging and engaging the talker verbally and non-verbally, paraphrase, getting more information out of the talker, rephrasing, clarifying, and being mindful of my body movement, especially my eye contact. They said the Western culture requires about 57% of eye contact. So these are some of the solutions to the barriers which I face. Next slide, please. Interpersonal and external noise pollution. Some of those noise pollutions, those things that distract me, and the external ones. Anxieties, prejudice. How am I perceiving this person? I get preoccupied with that. Going off on mental tangents, thinking about other things when the conversation is happening. Conflicts with other behavioral blends. I tend to have conflicts with people who are high demanding. Some of my externals are phone calls, time pressures. Those can become pollutants that affect the way I communicate or receive information. What are the solutions? There's some of the internal solutions to my internal noise. Very simply, just being attentive, finding a common interest with the talker. Also, assume less, clarify more, listen more with my ears, evaluate the content, not what the talker is saying, not their behavior, but more so the message, and find a common ground with them. For the external noise, simply put off my phone. Find a more convenient place or environment where I can have a conversation without being easily distracted by people or by external things as well. Moving along. Now, what are my action plans? Well, I have several of them. I would like to make goals reality. First, I want to practice empathetic listening at every occasion I have. Martin Gregory mentioned about having a 5-minute conversation where you ask a close friend to have a conversation, evaluate how you speak, how your body language is, to read back, to tell back to you what was being said, what did I say, and to be able to listen to what information I'm putting out there and how I am bringing out that information. That's something I want to put into practice. Also, developing clearly expressing my thoughts and feelings would be helping with assertiveness. To develop my concentration, retaining information so I could be more accurate when I rephrase, when I summarize them. I believe this would truly help me. Also is becoming aware of red flag words. Making myself aware. How does it affect me? Why does it affect me? What value system does it affect? And quickly analyzing that, moving forward, so I can give 100. I can go and listen at a level 1. Next, I would like to resist the urge of interruptions, making sure that I implement the him her where I do not become a rescuer listener, wanting to give advice or interrupt, giving my 2 cents, but listening effectively to what the person is saying, taking it and making mental notes, making those notes, writing it down, rephrasing it, saying it out once again so I could hear that person and the talker can hear me. And like I said, maybe more assertive. I would like to go into an okay situation. This, of course, is a goal for me. One of the ways in reading the text, I've come to understand is the acknowledgement of responses, the acknowledgement of responsibility, reflection of the feelings. What are you feeling? And description of the event. So I could say, it seems to me you're angry about John letting go of your work, letting go of the work. That is acknowledging them. I can now take care of those difficult situations. In conclusion, I would like to say that as a messenger of God, it's important that I listen very closely to not only to people, but to God.